So this meeting is not yet called to order, but we will start the meeting nevertheless. I will hold the Open Public Meeting Act portion. Can I read that now, Clerk, or Madam Clerk, or wait till we have a quorum to read it?
I would wait till you have a quorum.
Okay. So we're going to go back and do some other little, little government items, little items of paperwork items later, but for right now, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are a quorum.
Well, we are a quorum, so I shall read we are now called to order officially. This special meeting of the Township Council is called to order in accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. Be advised that adequate notice of this special meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Franklin, County of Somerset, was made by posting on the bulletin board of the municipal complex and transmitted to the officially designated newspapers indicating that this special meeting would take place at the Franklin Township Municipal Complex at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, June 28th, 2016. In addition, a copy of this notice has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. We have already done the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Master Clerk, please call the roll.
Deputy Mayor Chase. Here. Councilwoman Francois. Mayor Kramer.
Here.
Councilman Oni Jaka. Councilman Prasad.
Here.
Councilwoman Robinson. Councilwoman Sherman. Councilman Vasanella.
Here.
Councilman Wright.
Here. Thank you. Mr. Vornlocker, present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our purpose here tonight is to have a public hearing on the proposed improvements that would result in Arlington Park. Arlington Park is located on Arlington Avenue, just a short bit up from Easton Avenue. What I have up on the screen right now, and if everyone can read it, I don't think there's a problem with the lights right now, but this is a page from the beginning of the recreation needs assessment that was done for the township and completed and adopted in 2012, done by Branstetter Carroll. We often refer to it. This page in particular is the action plan. The first page that I have here is, as you see at the bottom of that page, short-term immediate needs, 0 to 2 years. Like I said, this was adopted in 2012, so clearly we're well past the 0 to 2 year portion of the recommendations of the needs assessment. And I'm going to put the microphone down for a second and hold it in front of me and scroll up a little bit. And you will see that develop the high priority new park improvements on the right column. The bullet point about halfway down says develop small parks on current township-owned parkland in wards 4 and 5, and the locations are Willow Road, Arlington Park, Norris Road Park, and Hawthorne Park. Through discussions with the Land Use Committee of Council, numerous discussions over the last 4 years, Arlington Park was identified as the most viable location of all of those locations listed, so the work progressed on the design aspects of Arlington Park. That's what brings us here today. I will just minimize this screen for 1 second and bring up another page. So this was also taken from, and this, we're going to dim the lights, Mayor?
Yes,
Okay.
if you could get the lights.
So this page is also taken from the needs assessment further along, this was the concept plan that was done by Branstetter Carroll on behalf of the township as to what was recommended for improvements when Arlington Park was improved. As you see on that, it shows a playground area towards the, what it would be, I would define as the bottom of the picture. What's called a shelter, and so we would call what was called a shelter, which would be more like a picnic pavilion type structure, and then a basketball court. It shows some parallel parking along the curb line and a sidewalk along the frontage of the property. So that was the concept in the plan. Now we will go to what the actual plan is.
Bob,
Yes.
just if you can go back to the slide with the parking, because I know a couple of people were, or more perhaps, were concerned about that. Is that a bump? Yeah, I know it's only a
Let me get to that. That's the concept that was presented by Branstetter Carroll in the needs assessment. Has nothing to do with what I'm about to present.
Oh, okay.
It's just the concept that was in the needs assessment as what was recommended as working on this particular piece of property. And we'll talk about parking. This is the actual plans for the park. Draft plans, obviously. So there you see the design of the park, and this is the drawing of the park. So what I'll tell you is that moving from left to right, and I know the print is very small, and I think that most of you have seen this at some point. It was on the website, and there was, I can't increase it. Yes, I'll try that. That'll make it a little bit bigger at least. And we'll scroll. That'll work. So what we have there is to the left, playground equipment, and we'll show you a couple pictures after we come off this screen. That shows a pre-K tot lot, a 5-year and up, it's actually 5-year to 12-year-old playground equipment, a gazebo in the middle connected by a porous pavement walking trail that connects out to the street, and then to the right a basketball court. So very similar to what was recommended in the needs assessment. Really the difference here is rather than go with a full-blown picnic pavilion like we have in some of our other parks, we went more with like the garden-style gazebo, which we have some pictures of what's recommended. So kind of sticks to the concept. The fact that it shows no curb cuts and parallel parking along the curb is because there's utility poles there, and that can't be done without great expense. So what would happen here is there's been some discussion. There already is a prohibition against parking on the park side of the street for the length of this all the way up to the next intersecting street. There's the possibility that to allow for parking on the park side of the street, we would flip the parking prohibition from one side to the other, leaving the no parking zone in front of the tow company, which was what that no parking ordinance was enacted for, to prohibit the parking near the tow company by the tow company, which became a problem years ago, and then allow for parking in front of the park, but still only allow parking on one side of the street. But certainly, the parking ordinances are things that can be discussed and can be altered based on the needs once the park is built. It's not anything that can't be changed should the need arise or should there be a determination that need exists.
Mr. Bornlocker,
Yes.
if I can just jump in there just one second.
You're going to
No,
probably want to
Mike.
get to the microphone, Councilman.
Can I just jump in there 1 second?
Sure.
I saw some heads flip because some people didn't realize, they don't know how this thing's supposed to be set up with the parking on that one side. I assume that somewhere down the line, you'll explain how that parking situation will go on the screen.
I don't know that I could explain it any more than I just did.
Well-
It's no parking now. We would change the ordinance to allow parking on the park side
Okay,
and move the no parking to the other side of the street.
Okay, well,
excuse me.
you'll have time to comment, and I'm definitely interested in your comments, but to keep
okay.
things in order.
I just wanted to make sure that what I saw on the piece of paper, I think some of them had a question on, but further on down the line, we'll go to it, I guess.
What, if we can let him,
We're nearly done, so there's not a whole lot to this. So that's the park. We would look to put in a wooden stockade fence, privacy fence around the entire perimeter of the park on the three sides that border properties. Keeping the existing trees, you see where it says proposed tree line, so those trees would remain, so that there would be the trees along the entire back property line. On this property line that is to the right, it says existing 8-foot-tall concrete wall. That's the wall between the tow company and our property. There's already a wall, and the fence would also go up along that property line to the left that would match the fence in the back of the property to provide a level of privacy to the adjoining property owners. There is a fence that goes in around the basketball court perimeter at the edge of the property along the street. That's the purpose of that fence is obviously just to prevent balls from going out in the street. It would allow for everything to be maintained within the park property itself. So that is the layout of the park. Just scroll down a page. It's a basketball detail, which is boring. This is the type of playground equipment that is proposed for the playground. This is the 2-year-old to 5-year-old type play equipment. As you see, it's rather small in size. This is in scale with the property itself. It's not a large play area. Likewise, that would be the pre-K, and then that would be for the 5 to 12-year-olds. That's the proposed play area. The gazebo itself in the middle. Is it here, Tom? Now that I'm zoomed in, it's hard for me to tell. That's the type of gazebo that we're talking about in scale with the human beings. Inside, you can see that it's relatively small in scale. Again, it's not a huge piece of property, so we didn't want to overwhelm the property with large structures. That's why we thought it would be more advantageous to have a small area with some benches under it for people to sit as opposed to the full-blown picnic pavilion. Gentlemen, that's the park.
all right, so we'll go on to council discussion. Remember, we are planning to have a council meeting at 7, and what I'm most interested in, and I think you are too, is hearing the public. So, Councilman Vasanello, this is in your ward. Why don't you go first, and if you could turn on the lights, that would be great.
I'll bring the drawing up of the overall park.
Okay, thank you. So,
That's the most.
of course, we want to get the input, but I think at least some of the concerns I'd like to ask some questions about. First of all, where it all says wooded,
Mm-hmm.
knowing the area, that is pretty wooded, it's pretty camouflage, you can't, there's barrier buffers, whatever you want to call them. That would all remain, right? Except for the part on the lower side of those squiggly lines, to be simplistic?
Correct. So the goal here would be to maintain that existing vegetation, trees, along what that squiggly line is. That's the best way we could, and that's the line, that's the word I would use too, Councilman. That squiggly line is the proposed tree line. What's wooded now in that area would remain. You can see it thins out a little bit to the right on the back property line, but it does thin out, and so with the basketball court and the grading, you would have to remove trees in that area where the basketball court is. I mean, the entire lot right now is overgrown, so there's a number of trees that would need to be cleared out for the improvement, but we would leave that in the back,
So we would,
existing.
we would have somewhat of a green buffer, and then you would still have a solid wood stockade fence
Yes,
in the back.
correct. In the back, along the back property line would be a fence.
And the
yes.
side also for
Yes,
the
and that
residents?
side where the wall is,
Where the-
the other opposing side, there would be a fence there.
Where the
too.
residents?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
So the other question I had is the other area would be clear, where it's like the gazebo and the little walkways, so
Mm-hmm. It would.
anybody would be able to see if there was anybody in there.
Wide open to the street.
After dark or anything. I mean,
Yes,
it's
the
wide-
entire property would be open to the street.
So people would be able to know if there was any activity or
I mean,
after-hours activity that,
you would
when the park
certainly
is
see it,
closed.
yes.
Okay, so the only thing I want to comment, and I'd like to hear, after my other colleagues may comment, the public's concerns, of course. There's a couple different parking, how it's evolved. One in the book you saw originally, and that's what I was referencing, that it looked like, how do I put this, that the parking for the 8 or 10 spots that were there were kind of not on the street. It was actually
right, they were cut
cut
in.
into the park.
they were
So
cut in.
just want to be clear, if, not that we have to take that route or any route, but if we took the route of putting some parallel parking spots there, that would not cut off any of the width of the street, because...
I think that was the goal of Branstetter Carroll, was that you wouldn't have to do that if you so basically what you would be doing there is widening the street by 8 feet to allow for parking stalls along the frontage, parallel parking stalls, so that it wouldn't narrow the street any further with on-street parking. That was certainly, I think, the
yeah.
goal of Branstetter Carroll. Unfortunately, conditions don't permit it.
Gotcha. I wasn't clear
That's
to
the
that, I
reason
just
why
want
we
to
didn't do it.
short of concern. Then what about the possibility of, like we have at Rutgers Heights Parks and some other small neighborhood parks that we don't have any or much parking? There is the possibility to take a few gravel spots instead of parallel, have them be pulled in like those other parks?
I would advise against that.
Okay, I'm just
Yeah.
looking at the options, because I'm sure there's concern.
From a traffic safety standpoint, from an improvement standpoint, there's differences between Emerson Road and Arlington Avenue. There's also the fact that there's curbing here and there's no curbing there. You're looking at, and there's some grade issues as well. You go up a slope here.
The only thing I want to say, and make sure we're all on the same page, the idea is that this isn't a park which would be promoted or put out there, the idea of drawing people from far distances. The idea is to have it so as many children or adults can walk or ride their bike.
The proper terminology for this would be a neighborhood pocket park. This is not a destination park. This is not a park that's intended to be used by people who get in a car and drive to it. This is a park that's intended for people who live in the general vicinity of it to walk there and take advantage of the amenities. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other council members? Deputy Mayor Chase.
What about, you've mentioned that you can't just widen the street because of the utility poles, but could you cut in some parking areas between utility poles?
So there's a desire to have sidewalks along the frontage, and to get with the slope and with that, I'd say it would be difficult to try to squeeze in between the existing utility poles.
You would end up with 3 or 4 parking spaces there between those utility poles, and you would have the utility poles sticking out in between them.
Well, I'm just thinking of what they've done along Washington Street in Rocky Hill, perhaps more as a traffic calming measure there, where
It was, and
you have cutouts between bulbs, as I think you call them.
So it was, the bulb outs which were met with great displeasure and disfavor among the residents of Rocky Hill. What Somerset County would tell you was a traffic calming failure. I don't know that the benefit here would outweigh the detriment. We don't like to put utility poles as targets. I realize that they're not now out in the middle of the road, but if you allow for that utility pole to sit on an island in between two openings when there are no cars parked there, and you allow for someone to drift, a curb serves two purposes. One, it channels drainage water, and it also channels vehicles that should drift back into the roadway. If there's no curb there and someone were to drift, they're drifting and then going into a utility pole.
Well, you'd have curbing around the
But you wouldn't have
utility
curb
pole.
if there were no cars parked there. So if someone were to be coming up Arlington Avenue from Easton Avenue, if there were no cars parked in that opening and the utility pole was out 8 feet from the curb, and someone were to drift off the road in that particular point, they would go into the utility pole, because it would be in the middle. There's a number, I think there's just a number of issues. The ideal circumstance would have been to be able to put the full curb indentation there. However, the utility poles disallowed that. I don't think that Branstad or Carroll went out and actually surveyed. They took aerials and said, this would be the ideal. If the utility poles were on the other side, we'd be in perfect condition.
Any other questions? Mr. Prasad, you look
Yeah, no, I mean,
ready for a question.
I'd just like to make a suggestion, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
We actually flip the council discussion till after we've heard from the public.
Well, we can always make comments whenever we want it. Let's
Sure.
get what other comments.
So
we
let's
have.
hear from the public and find out
Oh,
what they think.
Thank you for your suggestion. Do any other council members want to make a comment?
Just the one, I think Councilman Vasanella brought it up, and I think the township manager answered it, and that was that parallel parking. I think you were just going through that right now, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other council members have questions? So my one question, I'll put the engineer on a spot. I don't expect you to have a clean answer to this, but what would it cost to bury the power lines for the length of the park?
More than is appropriated to do the park itself.
Okay, so lots and lots of money.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So just as a point of reference, and some of, maybe you'll give me a closer number, but I have a number in my head. We had to move a utility pole, just move a utility pole on DeMott Lane for the entrance to Middle Bush Park. And I believe it was in the neighborhood of $125,000?
It was $170,000.
$170,000 just to move that one utility pole.
Okay,
So that ought to put it in perspective.
all right. Seeing no other questions from council members, I'd like a motion to open to the public.
So moved. Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. The meeting is open to the public. If you can come up to the mic, you're only allowed to come up once. Well, we'll allow 5 minutes for speaking. And go ahead and state your name and address.
Hello, my name is Richard Fent, owner-operator of Anthony Motors Towing in Franklin here. We're on 22 Arlington Avenue, also known as 20 Arlington Avenue. I don't know why it always goes back and forth. I purchased the property in a tow yard about 8 years ago from the DiGiovanni family, one of the oldest towing families in the state of New Jersey. We hold a contract for the township and a few other municipalities. Our job is to tow in crashed vehicles. We hold impounded vehicles, some that have been seized by the local police department, held for evidence. Occasionally, we do get fatality cars. We currently have 2 Dobermans in the yard to act as security. And there's a lot of things about this park I think are going to be terrible for us at the tow yard. We do have a speeding problem on our street. It's a local cut through from Easton Avenue when traffic, cars go excess of 60 miles an hour every day. Parking is already a problem on Arlington with local neighbors, there's tenants, some rental houses. Some of my concerns are that if there's a park next to my tow yard, I have 2 Dobermans I keep on the property as a security, as to keep people out. Some of my problems pose as, what happens if a little kid throws a ball over the wall? I do have an 8-foot wall. I do have a chain link fence for gates with safety, with barriers. I wouldn't want my kid hanging around near a tow yard with Dobermans in it. Also, a safety concern, another safety concern I have is at nighttime. I like the idea you're going to leave a little wooded area in there. That's a great thing, because currently, as some of the neighbors will tell you, there are a few white-tailed deer that live in there. There's a red-tailed fox or 2. I've seen possums, baby raccoons, woodpeckers. I even seen an eagle one time, a bald eagle up there. I seen red-tailed hawks, etc. Numerous animals call that safe haven in the neighborhood, because nobody goes in there. It's very thick. It's heavily wooded. It's a nice little safe haven for the animals. Part of my concern is, like you gentlemen were saying, you're going to leave some of the woods left in there. How could you tell if there's somebody in there? What if there's somebody hiding in the woods at night, peeking at my yard, peeking at some of the neighbor's yard? We're close to New Brunswick. Not saying it's a high crime area, but there is crime in our area. I just have a lot of concerns over having a park next to a tow yard. Trucks coming in and out, little kids running around. Like I said, parking is already a nightmare. I know I'm leaving a lot of things out, but I only been here 8 years, and I'm sure that some of my neighbors would like to raise some of their concerns, but I think there's a lot of better places to put a park than this place. I appreciate you thinking about, what this will cost to do and the impact it would have, not only on my business, on some of the residents here. I know if I lived next to that lot, I wouldn't really want to park there, considering what we have, what size of the lot it is, how much room there is to start with. I just think there's a lot of better ways the tax money could be spent. And I'm going to let somebody else take the mic.
Thank you.
Thanks for hearing me.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gail Spradley. I live on 74 Arlington Avenue. My husband Lawrence and I have been there 33 years. Our house, this proposed park, would be directly to the left of our home. Most of us on Arlington Avenue are senior citizens. We have a wonderful quality of life. So I'm trying to understand where the children for this park are coming from. Hence, with there being a park at Castleton, there's a park at Pine Grove, which is a couple blocks down. We are concerned, as Rich said, the parking could be a nightmare with the park there. Children running around, sometimes maybe not supervised. Just our overall quality of life, I feel as though is going to be compromised. Possibly the value of our homes could go down. There are a plethora of issues, and I just can't understand why you guys maybe can't go back and look at, I believe you said Hawthorne or Norristown. Maybe they might be more viable, because right now, I feel as though the spot where this proposed park is wanting to be built is just not a good living situation for those of us who are in the community. And again, where are the kids coming from? Where are these kids coming from? All of us are basically senior citizens. There are no children on our block. I don't think there are any. Where are the kids coming from? So, I beg of you to reevaluate this, because this is not a good look for us, and we're very, very concerned, especially, again, with it being right next door to my husband and my house. Her front yard is going to be impacted. She's going to have to look at basketball players all day long. You don't know what kind of people are going to be brought to this nice, quiet area. I certainly encourage you guys to use it, keep some of the wooded area, and let it be a safe haven for God's creatures, and that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Jawan Jaquez. I live at 31 Irvington. I've been a resident my whole life. I'm 33 years old. My main concern, I have a 7-year-old child, and I get off of work at 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I try to take him to the park, Castleton, Inman, Fire Park. He goes to Pine Grove, even Pine Grove. There's nothing good after 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in these parks, unfortunately. Yes, ideally we make these parks for the children, but unfortunately, everybody that goes to the park parks under the gazebo to smoke, to drink, nothing positive. You get a couple guys playing basketball, and after they play basketball, under the gazebo. If you go to any park, any given day, 9 out of 10 times, you're not going to see anything positive in any of these parks. Maybe Inman, because you have after-school activities, you got baseball practice, soccer practice, stuff like that. But all these little local parks, the Fire Park, I take my son to karate. I come outside, people on the gazebo smoking, talking. You know, this is not stuff that we want in our backyard. There's no reason why, and I believe you came to the house one time, and after that, I went out numerous times. Like, again, I told you that day, I've been mentoring kids for the last 10 years, and this is what they do. The stuff they're not allowed to do at home, they go to their local parks, because that's where nobody sees them. Cops don't go into the parks. Once in a blue moon, they might take a ride by, they go in, leave. This is not good. My son, we're at 31 Irvington. Out of his room, this is what he's going to be seeing. People sitting under the gazebo. I mean, from what it looks like, we don't have no say in this. There's something you look like you're going to do. But
That's the whole point we're here, is to get the input from the neighborhood.
Like the last person said, you need something for the senior citizen. You have enough parks for the youth and the younger people. Do something, do a flower park, a butterfly park, something else than a basketball court or a gazebo, because this is not going to be anything positive is going to come out of this.
And just to let you know, we just recently passed a ordinance, so it is illegal to smoke in any public park or
There's
public.
our many
Just
laws.
so you know that
There's many laws, but they're broken every day, you know. So, I mean, I appreciate
No,
that.
I'm just saying that was a recent change.
Yeah,
So the town is in the process of putting signage in all the parks you're
You need to
talking
understand
about.
where we come from. There's laws that's broken every day, so that's, I'm pretty sure it's going to keep happening, even though with those in place, you know? All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Here we go.
Louis Genovese, 126 Arlington Avenue. Come September, I'll be there 49 years. I was probably the third person on the block from Grove Street down to Easton. In fact, I was there when the road, Arlington, didn't even go down to Easton. Anyway, I'd like to pick up on some of the very good comments that this person made regarding the animals and the birds. I'm an animal lover, and if this park goes through, another example of a habitat that will disappear. He named all the animals. I've seen them. I'm up and down Arlington. Couple of quotes from very famous people regarding nature. All good things are wild and free. Henry David Thoreau. Look deep into nature, and then you will understand everything better. Albert Einstein. The Arlington is a pass-through for all the workers that get out of work 2:30, 3 o'clock. They'll make their right-hand turn onto Arlington, and then they'll gun it. I'm surprised there haven't been any fatalities on Arlington Avenue. There was one car about a year ago that used it as a drag strip and actually was doing, I think you might have been.
Every day you do, they never caught him.
It's a Honda. It's one of those low Hondas. By the time he reached down to Rodney, he probably was doing about 65 miles an hour. And he's done it a number of times, but thank God he hasn't done it in the last year. That doesn't mean he's not going to come back.
So I would say, you know, you have a park over at Castleton, you have one at Pine Grove. If we have a budding NBA player, you know, they can practice at their gym at the high school and whatever. But I don't think we need a park on Arlington Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
My name is John Latrakis. I live on 85 Arlington Avenue. I'm not going to reiterate what most of the other people said. I'm just going to add a couple different points. Parallel parking would be a hazard on that street. No question about it. And there was a reason we put that no parking on that side of the street. And we don't want it changed. There's also another issue that probably wasn't addressed, and that is that a lot of that property may be polluted for Tony had that business like 40 years before him, and I think a lot of stuff may have gotten thrown over that fence. Some of that land may be polluted on that property. I don't know that for a fact, but that's a possibility. There are no kids on our block. It's almost all seniors now. And it is a hazard because of driving on that street. It's ridiculous to put a park there. That's about all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Octavia Sanders, 24 Irvington Avenue. I've lived on Irvington Avenue for 22 years, and as everyone else said, most of us are seniors there, so I'm not sure who's going to benefit from the park, but it won't be the people in the general area. We do have Castleton Park, so the people who live from Hillcrest over, they can go to Castleton, and we have Pine Grove Park. I, too, experience people flying up our street, Irvington Avenue, from Easton Avenue. And if they do the same thing on Arlington, I don't see how the parking is going to be effective. Whether you do a parking lot or if you do parallel parking, it's going to be a problem. I'm on the end where it's thinning out, so the wooded area is thinning out. So I would be able to see the basketball court from the area that I'm living in, because I'm closer to where the tow truck is. I'm down that end. And there really aren't any small children in my area where I live. So I can't see the benefit of the park. Thank you.
Good evening. John Cespatowski, 44 Irvington Avenue. I've been a resident of Somerset for a little over 20 years. All of these fine folks, and not senior citizens because I've got gray hair and I don't feel like I'm a senior citizen, but all these fine folks have made great points, without a doubt. And I applaud the fact that the township would like to spend the tax dollar of its residents on something appropriate, but I do agree with them that this is not appropriate. And the reason that I believe it's not appropriate is that we do not have to fill every tract of land in your ward. We've placed houses at the end of Irvington Avenue that were inappropriately placed. People park their cars outside of the driveway there, so people making turns off of Easton Avenue onto Irvington Avenue find their face into a car. You're going to have the same situation down at the end of Arlington if you do this. Let's stop filling tracts of land just for the sake of filling them, and let's maintain the parks that we currently have. I think it would be a monumental mistake if we invested in this park and didn't take care of Castleton. I would invite any of you council members over to Castleton on an afternoon to just examine the fence line of Castleton, the tree line of Castleton, the upkeep of the parking lot in Castleton, the upkeep of the garbage at Castleton Park. These fine residents of Arlington and Irvington Avenue do not want that. This is not what we signed up for when we decided to move to Somerset, okay? We're looking for a safe environment, a quality of life environment, and not people doing 60, 70, and the gentleman said 200 miles per hour down Arlington Avenue as a cut-through at 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning, and again in the afternoon starting at 3:30 until 7 at night. It's inappropriate. There are no police over there, like there are on New Brunswick, clocking these people as they come up and down our streets. We have side streets that they can park on. They can park in my driveway and set up a speed trap if they'd like. This needs to be controlled. You need to reconsider this. This is inappropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stewart? No, sir, you cannot come up again.
Keith Stewart, 26 Atlantic Road. I'm a chairman of the Advisory Recreation Council. Obviously, the idea of this park was to be a pocket park, and it wasn't designed for people to drive to. It was more for the close residents nearby that live in between that halfway point between Castleton and Pine Grove, so that they could walk it. You know, those that have smaller children. I think one of the things, or several of the things to look at is, you know, what would have been nice as we discussed it in the Recreation Council meetings was to get some input as far as what the residents that were nearby would actually like to see. For instance, the basketball court. If it was determined that maybe the residents that lived within walking distance would like to see something else that they would use and would see as far as more beneficial to the residents that are within walking distance, I think that would be great. So as far as me personally, and I live within walking distance of that area as well, I wouldn't want more parking added for people to drive there. And on the other side of the street, to prevent parking on that side, even something as far as permit parking that only the residents that live at those homes could park, so there'd be a deterrent to anybody trying to drive there as a park, because once again, you do have the larger areas as far as Castleton Park and Pine Grove for those people that need to travel. And as far as the speed, whether or not, no matter what goes in there, the addition of speed bumps perhaps would be something that could slow down some of that traffic. So once again, as far as the Advisory Recreation Council, we are in unanimous agreement on the need for the pocket parks. Thank you.
May I just ask a question? I
No,
know I spoke, but I just want to know, wouldn't that, what this gentleman had mentioned, wouldn't that be part of the validity assessment that you all completed?
So council will make some comments afterwards, but I hear your question. Anyone else wish to speak?
Thank you for letting us speak on behalf of this proposed park. I live at 27 Irvington Avenue. If you look at the chart,
Name and address, please.
27
But your name.
Sharon Zamorsky,
Thank you.
27 Irvington Avenue. Our properties are 118 deep. From the end of our houses to our back property lines is about 30 feet. The proposed park, is only 100 feet deep. Now, which would be behind my house, there would be a wooded area. What is going to stop, like everyone mentioned, after dark? Who's going to monitor that wooded area? Or the gazebo? Do we have to worry about something happening? My other concern is that Arlington Avenue is not wide enough for cars to be parking on the street. There's a tow yard right next door. They tow cars in and out, like Rich mentioned. How will Arlington Avenue accommodate the tow trucks? What if a child were to run into the street, or one of the kids playing basketball, and Rich is coming up the street? There will be a fatality waiting to happen. I'd like to ask the council a question. Looking at this proposed park and where our houses are located, would you like that in your backyard or your front yard? I live in Castleton, which is less than a mile away. There's hardly any children there. I've been there 43 years. There are no children on Arlington or Irvington. We're all seniors now. Let alone the noise that we will have to deal with. We're going to be able to sit in our backyards hearing basketballs bouncing. Children play, they scream, they have fun. What is going to be our quality of life? It's not going to be very good. Right now, like Rich mentioned, it's a wildlife habitat. I have a pair of cardinals that nest in the bushes. They come to my home 3 or 4 times a day for peanuts. Where are they going to go? What about the white-tailed deer? I'm sorry? Oh, the foxes. Have the council members gone to the site to see what is proposed? How many council members have gone to see it? 2. 4. Okay. What I'd like to do, invite all the council members to come to 27 Arlington Ave in my backyard and see what an impact this is going to have. A severe impact on all of us. Let alone Rich. What is he, a child once? Is he going to have that in his conscience? We live in such a wonderful, quiet neighborhood. And when you get old, you don't want to deal with that. Your kids are gone. This is a horrible place to put a park. Please do not vote to approve this park. This location is going to be a detriment to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Courtney Sespatowski, 44 Irvington Avenue. I heard you mention that this park was proposed and everything in it was proposed off of a need base from what you assessed within the community. I just want to know, who exactly did you ask?
So there was a 1.5-year-long study that was done, and many, many surveys were done of residents throughout the township, both by mail, telephone, public hearings, public meetings, web-based surveys, and the needs were determined. This property was throughout the township, and including this area, specifically the 4th and 5th wards as a whole. The township has owned this property since the 1950s. And it's always, since 1961, when the Green Acres regulations were first enacted by the state of New Jersey, this property has been listed as proposed parkland. It's been for a very, very, very long time.
Okay, I've lived here for 21 years, and I just want to let you know that it is not a safe place to walk at all. Ride your bike. You can't get around our neighborhoods. You can't walk down the street because we don't have sidewalks. We don't have a way to get to this park. And there's no way that you can park on Arlington Avenue. You can't park on Irvington Avenue because they don't drive safe. It's very hard to drive down the street. I've only been driving for a little bit, but you have to drive so slow because we don't want people driving down our street and speeding down our street. Why would we want strangers parking on our streets? Why would we want people from the other end of town coming over to use our park because they can't walk there? There's no reason for this park because the people in the area that would be walking to this park know you can't walk to the park and don't want to walk to a park because we don't need to.
Anyone else wish to speak? For those who just came in, this is a hearing on Arlington Park. So if anyone wishes to speak on Arlington Park only? No, you already spoke.
See, oh,
Hang on.
Carl.
You need to use your mic.
Mr. Mayor, I would say, given the situation that we're putting in the park, I would ask that we just granted just a little leeway to the residents who have come here to speak. Now, I'm not talking about giving them 5 minutes. 30 seconds will do, for me, but just to get them, if they have a question, something of that nature.
So this is a hearing to get the basics out. You can meet with them afterwards. We've got a council meeting after this. So let's just run the meeting according to the agenda. I'll be happy to hear from you, sir, afterwards, and I'll speak to you, but I'd rather not defer from the agenda.
Can I add to
Do I have,
Just
no, we're still in public.
Once you go out, once you go out, I'd like to just add to that.
So do I have, is anyone else wish to come up?
No one else? Okay, so a motion at this point to close the public portion if there's no one else looking to come forward, Mayor.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of closing public session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Public session is closed. Mr. Vornlocker, you have a comment?
I just wanted to add that there will be no vote tonight by council. To those of you in the audience, so there's a couple different opportunities, that's all. And the most important opportunity that everyone has is to reduce their concerns and in writing and submit them to the township and submit them to the New Jersey DEP, because all of this process is regulated by the state of New Jersey and the Green Acres regulations. And it will also have an opportunity when council votes on whether to move forward on this project or not. There will also be a public portion then for the opportunity to speak. That's all.
So we will not be voting tonight. We will not even be voting at our next council meeting, which is in July, because there's a 15-day waiting period, and that's 13 days away or something. I may have the numbers not exactly right. The soonest we could vote on this is August. And so this is really a time for public comment. Does any council have any burning comments they want to make? I would like to start the council meeting at 7.
Just one, and that is, since the neighborhood is all seniors, you can express this in your written comments, but would you prefer to have senior activities there, like bocce ball or anything else that, all of you can get together there and enjoy it and have a social setting for it, brings the community together, that's all. I mean, that's just a suggestion or a thought that I had, that if it's not for the kids, then maybe it is for the seniors. And there are seniors out there who are playing bocce ball and other things, so.
So we all have email accounts. If you email us, even just, I don't want the park, I do want the park with bocce ball or whatever, however you want it. I don't like the parking, but I would like the park. Mail those comments. That we will read them, we will take them to heart. And this has been very informative. Councilman Vassanello and I went around one day and knocked on every single door that abutted the park, everyone who was next to the park. And I believe we came up with 12 people.
I think it was about 11 or 12 that we actually
Right.
spoke to out of about 16 or 18.
Every single one of them was in favor. So and if there had been, people were in favor. If everyone had been against, this wouldn't even happen. So I was shocked that this happened. But this means a lot to me. This is important input. This isn't, we're going to build a park and we have to have public comment, and we're going to ignore public comment because we're going to build a park. That's not what we're doing. This is public comment to get input. Okay, I'm going to adjourn, call for adjourning the meeting now, and I'm going to break my rule and start the next meeting 5 minutes later so I can see these two people who had some things they wanted to say. I do want to meet with them. We're going to start the meeting at 5 after 7. Do I have a motion? Unless another council member wanted to say something.
I'd like to make a quick comment.
I think you certainly deserve to. It's your ward.
Yeah, echo what the mayor said and a few other council people who have gone around there. The idea is to try to utilize this land in some way that benefits the neighborhood. And of course, we're most concerned with the people that live the closest to it. But the idea was to look at what, I don't know, I'm just going to guesstimate, like within maybe 4 to 6 block, maybe a half-mile radius. So as much as we're mostly concerned with people who live close by, we're also looking at what the usage. But the idea of the safety issues that were brought up, these are issues that we deal with all over town, and we need to address those regardless of what happens with this park, whether it goes forward in any capacity or not. I think it may actually help quell something, may reduce some of the problems you're talking about with speeding, but regardless of what we do with this park, those issues we need to deal with, and I don't think, I just don't want to mix the two issues, but we hear what you're saying about your safety concerns, and we'll have discussions next couple of months and try to see where this brings us.
Councilman Wright.
Just two concerns. I think someone mentioned that the park would be close to their house or something of that nature. Well, if you lived in the 4th Ward, close to Neiman Williams Park, you actually live across the street. You can throw a spitball and hit Neiman Williams Park. The senior citizens live on the park because there's basically no divider between the two. And I say that just so we can move off from that it's close to my house type of deal. I'm also on the redevelopment agency, and one of the things that one of our redevelopers are going to do is they're going to put green grass down the length of a couple streets, And while part of it will be a park, the other half will just be green grass. So I understand your concern about where you're going, and trust me, after Middlebush Park, I definitely understand your concern. But one thing I can ask you to read or look at to get a better idea of what we're doing is a copy of the Recreation Needs Assessment Report. And in that, it'll tell you about the web survey and the direct survey that they had from the neighbors in that particular area, and exactly what they wanted in that park. So I advise you to look at that, because maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of you might have filled out the survey. I don't know, but as the mayor said, they walked down the neighborhood, and I don't remember the mayor. Did anybody say anything wrong, Mr. Mayor?
Everything was positive. That's why I'm shocked. But
I'm done, Mr. Mayor.
we actually did come to your house. You weren't home. Right. Okay. So I'm going to call for, right, and that's what this is about. This is about hearing what you had to say. So I'm going to call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned, but I would like to, you raised your hand, and this gentleman in the green.